something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children.
Hi there, welcome to Occupy TV. We're here with a few people that have been arrested in Occupy Eugene's random actions that we've been doing for the past few months. My name is Derek. This is Perry, Lotus, Dusk, and Art. We're here to talk about a few things regarding each of our individual arrests and the experience that we've had in jail, activism in general. And why don't we start with Perry?
Start with that.
Yeah, sure. We'll start with you guys.
Okay. I guess I'll start by talking about N17, in which we had one of our large arrests. And during it, we closed down that day, I believe, 5 banks. Am I correct?
All downtown?
Yes, all downtown branches of the banks. It was an incredibly epic, successful day in which a lot of us got arrested. Some of us sitting on the panel right now have spent time in a paddy wagon together, and it was a pretty special moment.
Oh gosh. Okay. I had a great time getting arrested. I know that that's kind of a funny thing to say, but I went to jail with some people who have become some of my closest friends, and I did it because I was standing up for something that I believed in, and I think that having that experience was one of the most empowering of my entire life. I know we got arrested in front of Chase Bank, which I personally have objections to because I'm for all kinds of reasons, but they take my money all the time, and it's, you know, my child support that is supposed to be for taking care of my child, and I can't have access to it sometimes. They don't give me a statement. Like, there's all these, and they just take your money, like, left and right. So, I don't know, I felt really good about sitting there in front of the doors with my other fellow occupiers and just going to jail for what I believe in.
Okay, I was also part of the N17 arrests, and for me that day was really important because one of the things that signified that day was that it was the 2-month anniversary of the Occupy Wall Street movement. Also, earlier that week, Occupy Wall Street in New York, as well as a couple of the other locations, had been evicted from their campsites. And so N17 was a day for us to stand up in solidarity all across the country and say that, you know, we won't stand for repression of our voices, you know, the repression of dissent in this country. We're all going to stand in this united. And so that's why N17 was such a big deal to me. It wasn't my first civil disobedience arrest, and I also didn't wake up that day knowing that I was going to be arrested, but I knew that there was actions planned for that day. And when it got down into the moment, I felt that it was the right thing for me to do. Chase has a terrible track record of foreclosing on military families and kicking these people out of their homes even while the family member who's in the service is serving overseas. It's a terrible practice, and they can't be allowed to do it. So that's why N17 was so important to me.
A little bit after November 17th was Black Friday, when a whole bunch of us got together and did a flash mob at the VRC, the Valley River Center. And we got there and we all timed our phones off and started singing Christmas carols at the same time, and it was all coordinated and fun, and people were singing with us and such, and there was a bunch of cops everywhere and inside the mall, and they told us to leave. And so we just went to Walmart. And we went to the Walmart, we sang Christmas carols, we had a good time telling people to unionize and such, and then they told us to leave. So we went to another Walmart, and I got arrested there at the end of the night after we decided on our own accord to leave, and they kind of grabbed me right out of the circle and put me away. And I gotta say, that was the most fun I've ever had in a Walmart ever. Everybody, all my friends, we were all singing Christmas carols and having fun with the employees. Some of them were a little angry, but I mean, you know, it was Black Friday. I'd be angry if I was working in a Walmart too. But the arrest is still being fought in court, and I've got a court date coming up here pretty soon, and my lawyer and I are going to be pleading not guilty. So, yeah, that's to be developed.
So in addition to N17, there were 2 other instances where I was arrested with the Occupy movement. In December, I left for a project that I started called the Occupy Expedition, and this was basically for research on the Occupy movement for my master's degree. And so in my travels, I got arrested 2 more times, once in Des Moines, Iowa, and then once in Asheville, North Carolina. In Des Moines, we had staged a die-in in the lobby of the hotel where the Democratic National Committee had their headquarters, which they not so appropriately titled the War Room. This was right after the holiday passage of the National Defense Authorization Act, which allows the U.S. military to indefinitely detain U.S. citizens. It's a huge violation of our constitutional rights and freedoms that the military has the power to do this, and it's completely outrageous that any president, whether Republican or Democratic, would pass something like this into law. But the fact is that Obama did it, and we weren't happy about it. So the day before, we walked down there to deliver a letter asking for a meeting with the head of the DNC in Iowa, when we were basically spurned by her and said, I don't have time to meet with you, I've got busier things, more important things to do. We decided that we weren't going to take this lying down. We went back later that evening, letting them know that our answer wasn't acceptable. We went up to the hotel, to the second room, where the War Room was staged. They obviously, weren't very receptive to our message. The hotel staff came pretty quickly and asked us to leave. So the next day, we gathered our forces, about 50 people or so, and staged a die-in where basically everyone who died represented individual liberties lost by the passage of bills such as the NDAA, which the Democratic Party has allowed. This was on January 2nd, and there were 12 of us arrested there, including myself. I'd been traveling with Occupy for about 2 weeks at that point. And the fact that it was also my second day in Des Moines, and I think what was really significant for me was just the fact that I had bonded so closely with those people in that amount of time that I trusted them enough to go into this situation knowing that I would face a kind of confrontation with the police and would most likely be arrested for doing what I was doing. How are we doing with that?
It's funny. That's like a total just opposite of what happened to me, because we all went there with the intention of showing up and not blockading anything and not necessarily... we went to Walmart and the VRC on Black Friday to protest the disgustingness of that holiday, and that's another topic. But we went there with the intentions of just moving on and leaving and that sort of thing. And the cops picked somebody out to arrest me, and in an attempt to just stop the action so everybody can go home. Unfortunately, that's what happened after that. But I mean, there's a big difference between people who go into an action who are completely willing to get arrested, knowingly trying to get arrested, and then people who just kind of get arrested because the cops are using it as a tool to solve a problem, public protest, whatever.
So speaking of cops solving problems, Art, you got arrested too for a flanking maneuver.
Yes, well, that's a long story, but...
That's a great story.
Yes. Okay, first of all, I was arrested basically at a site protest in George Polling's lawn. Polling is a city councilman. It was in protest of the shutdown of the Occupy Eugene camp and many of the lies that surrounded it. There was systematically lying on the part of the police and the police union from the beginning. First, they lied about the health and safety standards in the camp, which was part of what led the city council to revoke our parking permit. Then, once the decision to close the camp came through, they lied about how much time we would have to shut it down and shortened it considerably. There was also the factor that many of the people at the protest site were unhoused. The city promised warming centers would be open for at least a week. That was somehow shortened to 2 nights once everyone was out of the camp. Polling was a special target because he had voted, or he basically held up a council action single-handedly and vindictively that allowed there to be open sources of heat in the camp. Now we're talking about right near the winter solstice, and that caused considerable suffering to the people who chose to stay in the camp. So that's why he was targeted. A group of people went to his lawn and staged sort of a theatrical protest with dancing tents and various other things. The police came and completely overreacted. One person was ripped out of a tent and he went prone, which is a standard arrestee tactic where you just basically go limp and don't resist, and he was thrown to the ground and treated quite roughly. At that point, I chose to just go and stand on the lawn silently to sort of bear witness, which is an old civil rights and anti-war protest technique. I stood and waited, and then the police came and arrested me, and I told them I'd like to speak to my lawyer, and then they led me away. And the protest went on. I had a nice picture of me sitting and two other people sitting in front of George Polling's garage in handcuffs on the front page of the city section of the Register Guard, which is probably the most notoriety I've had in years.
About how many people would you say were at that action?
I would say about 17.
Yeah, didn't we count something like
20?
20
policemen,
like 18,
yes.
20 cops.
Yes.
One of them
Yes.
had a shotgun when they lined up in front of us, between us and the house.
Yes, and
It was ridiculous because there was a child. There were several children there who were members of people that had been living in the camp too, including my own child, and it was just a ridiculous, overblown response to the arrest. And not only did they do that, but there was a minor that we had video of them pulling off the sidewalk and arresting. And she actually, the next day, they just told her to get out of town, basically, that she should not come back, because they knew that they couldn't do anything about it, and they were going to be in big trouble. And I guess she was a traveler anyway, so they just told her to get out of town. And I don't know, she was a minor. There's no reason to be treating people like that in the first place, and they pulled her right off the sidewalk.
Unless you're the Eugene Police Department.
True that, unless you're EPD.
yes, everyone at the protest was astonished by the violence of the police reaction. It basically surprised me because it was a nonviolent protest and intended to be humorous in elements, and all of a sudden there was this huge escalation.
And again, at that protest, we were singing Christmas carols.
Yes.
And so I think that's one thing you can take away from this program, is that if you go anywhere public and you start singing Christmas carols about not so capitalist things, you might get arrested.
Well, I think it's important to note that anyone who takes part in any protest is running the risk of being arrested. When we march in the street, that's an arrestable offense. Even if we're completely nonviolent and completely legal, given the police could either arrest us on trumped-up charges like disturbing the peace or something like that. So basically, anytime you take part in any protest, you're running the risk of ending up handcuffed.
That's true, and not necessarily in a polite way either. I remember when we were sitting, after I got arrested at Chains Bank, when we were sitting in the paddy wagon, there's this chick there whose hands were turning purple. I think it was Gwen. Yeah, it was Gwen. Her hands were turning purple because her handcuffs were so tight, and her wrists had started to swell, and we're yelling at them. She can't feel her hands. Her hands are turning purple. You need to open the door. And the police just didn't do anything. They just left us there and ignored us, and I don't know, it was pretty inhumane treatment. I feel like.
As unjust as that treatment is, it's good to point out that those of us on this panel here with these arrests that we've encountered, with our arrests, we haven't come against extreme cases of police brutality, which are documented all over the nation right now, especially with the Occupy movement kicking up. Los Angeles in particular had a real brutal shutdown of their camp, and they had hundreds of people just lined up face down, zip ties behind their back for several hours at a parking arcade, without food or anything like that. And I believe it was the mayor or the chief of police that said that moment, the camp shutdown of Occupy LA, was LAPD's finest hour.
Wow.
Yep.
That's horrible. There was the arrests and things have definitely seemed to escalate, since November when we got all arrested. And actually, you were arrested later than November.
Yeah.
But definitely things have escalated since then.
They have, but at the same time, I must say, being arrested with you guys and everyone else that was in the back of that, and seeing how we made it shake, and it was awesome, and we were singing, and then after we were all in jail, we got a mic check, the guys who were in the cell next to us, and that was incredibly cool. Learn a trick that if you yell through the toilets, that some of the other cells can hear you really well. So
you gotta yell loudly.
Yes, you have to yell loudly. But we got to mic check the guys and hear that they were okay, and know that there was a whole bunch of solidarity going on that day between all of us. And I think it definitely outweighs anything bad that happened, because
I agree.
It's just amazing. I mean.
Just knowing that we were there with people that we trusted, and they were standing, in solidarity for, everything that we were getting arrested for. We were all very united. Put all the girls in the same room, and we jumped up on the benches and started stomping our feet really loudly. And actually, we did get some pretty good treatment from the jail, actually, because they didn't come in and tell us to be quiet. They didn't chastise us or anything at all. They fed us lunch. Some of us got 2 sandwiches. Some people got extra fruit. They were actually really, really good to us when we went to jail this time here, which was pretty cool.
Before we talk more about our experiences in jail, Perry, you were also arrested in North Carolina. Mm-hmm. What were some of the repercussions of that?
Well, it's interesting because of the Occupy movement, cities all across the country have been making up new laws to deal with not only campers, but protesters in general. And so what the Asheville City Council had done to finally, I got arrested at the eviction of the Occupy Asheville camp there. Mm-hmm. And so what the City Council had done to make that possible was that they created a new ordinance banning camping anywhere on city property. And this includes the use of tents or tarps or anything like that. So, because it was an Occupy protest, we're using tents as, symbols of our solidarity and symbols of our protests. Several of the tents that we had were...
With Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah, solidarity with Occupy Wall Street. And so several of the tents that we end up using at the protests in Asheville were decorated with all sorts of sayings on the side, solidarity forever, another world is possible, occupy everything. And what had happened is about 11 o'clock that night, the police came to kick everyone out. The camp had pretty much gone, and the people who were still staying in protest had moved their tents off of the old campsite, which was now subject to the park's 10 p.m. curfew, and moved the tents over to the 24-hour free speech zone. I know, it's a ridiculous concept, but it's the 24-hour free speech zone right in front of the City Hall building. We had 3 tents there. Me, my friend Matt, who I spent about 2 months traveling with, and then this other guy, John Penley, who's a very seasoned activist from New York. You can look him up online. And so the 3 of us had our tents there, and when they came, when the police finally came at about 11, we refused to move our tents, saying that they weren't for camping purposes, but were in fact symbols of our protest and expressions of free speech. And so we said that we wouldn't move them until we were ready to leave. The Asheville police were not okay with that. They were under very strict orders to get us out of there that night. And so both John and Matt were sitting actually in their tents when the police came, and they were both arrested, pulled out of their tents, and then the police took their tents down. I was standing several feet away from my tent. The police told me that if I didn't remove my tent, I would be cited. I told them that I planned to keep my tent there with me as long as I was going to be there, which was for, a good part of that night, because I'm allowed to be there. It's a 24-hour free speech zone. And so at that point, I was informed that I was being placed under arrest. This one was kind of tricky because I actually never was informed that I was going to be arrested. I was just told that I was going to be cited. So that's one sort of interesting aspect of my legal battle there. The other one is that we just blatantly think that the city's no camping law is unconstitutional. We're using those tents for a legally defensible purpose as defined by the National Park Service. If someone has a tent out but isn't sleeping in it, then it's considered part of the protest and not a living quarters. And so I'll be returning to Asheville on May 24th to challenge that law and fight the good fight in court.
Word.
And
Well, good luck, Perry.
You're on probation right now, yeah?
Yes. That's interesting because I'm trying to find out exactly what it means. I've been told I shouldn't get arrested for the next year or so. It's unsupervised probation, so I don't have to report to anyone, but apparently there will be consequences if I get arrested again, which makes me wonder exactly what those will be and if I do get arrested. And it seems to neutralize me in terms of being an activist. So as more people get arrested and more people draw probation, that might lead to a significant effect on Occupy's ability to mobilize people and take part in actions.
With everybody who's willing to get arrested getting taken out or neutralized one
Yes.
by one, are you cool to get arrested? I mean, with the stuff going on in Nashville? Or?
You mean before the action or like after?
After, like
After?
right now, if you and
Right
I
now?
were to go down to Walmart and start yelling in a megaphone about how everybody
With the
should stop
mask.
shopping there and lock ourselves down,
Because they should.
because you should.
Yeah,
Do all
in terms of the jurisdiction, I don't think my arrest in Asheville is going to affect anything that happens with me in Eugene. The only tricky part about me getting arrested now is like the logistics with when I have to appear in court. Because what I've noticed about Eugene is you have to show up about a month after your arrest. And so, you know, for some of our upcoming stuff like Occupy the Trees, you know, the timing of that might not work out well for the stuff that I'm doing in North Carolina. However, I think that that legal battle is really important to fight because what this law that the city passed in response to the Occupy movement, it essentially criminalizes homelessness within the city. It basically makes it impossible to live or even survive as a homeless person within Asheville. So we really need to get that changed, if for no other reason than it's sort of the movement's fault that this is being taken out on other people.
And along that same line, at the ports shut down in Portland on the National Day of shutting down all the ports, cities all over, if anybody's not familiar with it, cities all over the nation were shutting down the ports. And if you're in Oklahoma, then you shut down your train station. If you're in Portland, then you shut down the damn port. And you had to be on your best behavior during that.
Which is one of the hardest things I've ever had to do. No, the rest prior to the port shutdown made it so that, not that I couldn't necessarily get arrested at the port shutdown, but as my attorney said, it wouldn't be looked highly of. So I had to be on my best behavior there and just hope that the Portland cops don't get arrest crazy, because they kind of do there sometimes, which, you know, it is a really hard thing to be an activist and contain your rage because of a legal battle that you truly don't feel that you're guilty of. I feel like everything I've been to jail for has total legit reasons, and they pretty much silenced me almost at the port action with not being able to do a lot of the things and being a little bit more scared to necessarily stand in trucks and put yourself in that position.
And this sort of theme with getting arrested really just can put a huge damper on a local movement with key activists that are willing to put their necks out there to fight the good fight, having to be put into the jail system through probation or not having it be looked very highly upon in court kind of thing. Any thoughts about that?
Well, maybe we go to neighboring states or other towns and get arrested in other places and kind of hop around like Perry here has been doing. Because I think that, you know, protest the man, protest the fact that you can't protest without being arrested, you know, protest the fact that you can't use your free speech without being arrested for your free speech. So, I don't know, I feel like maybe we should mobilize and start traveling and hopping around and going to different places and networking, really, because you never know, you know. I feel like I was not able to do anything that I felt like would have been impacting at all for the 3 months that I was doing my community service, because they told us that if we got arrested in the meantime, that it would definitely be like a jailable offense, but if we, minded our P's and Q's and just did our community service, then it would be knocked down to a violation. So they bribed us to not be activists anymore so that, we wouldn't be clogging up the system, and I think that's crap.
Speaking of clogging up the system, those of us who were arrested while Occupy Eugene still had its camp up and were told to do so many hours of community service actually got to work with one of the local nonprofits who considered Occupy Eugene to be a pet project of theirs. So I think everybody on this panel who served community service hours actually got to serve them at Occupy Eugene, doing exactly what we were doing before.
I actually, for my community service, I was able to talk to the mayor and get myself into the task force on homelessness so that I could be doing something good with my, I had to do community service for doing a community service, but I was okay with that because it was something that I was going to do anyways, and it was definitely for a good cause for helping the homeless, which, by the way, don't ever get yourself involved in something like that if you want to believe in your local city government, because we got to the end of the task force and we're still in the same position of, okay, what do we do to help the homeless? So there is that, but a lot of good things came out of it, and we were able to take care of, well, at least I was able to take care of my community service in that way, working through Occupy Eugene and the CLDC and the mayor task force.
Yeah.
Future arrestees might not have that option. I was sentenced more recently than you were, and the judge specifically denied the option of community service to me, ruling that since I'd be doing it anyways, it would not be a punishment. So, yes.
That's cute.
Interesting. For part of my community service, actually talking about the port shutdown, I got to go up to Portland and do a lot of outreach since I did have to behave myself. I took the time and I did a lot of outreach to gain a lot of solidarity there. So, again, you're silenced to a point, but it only lasts so long.
Similarly, something that took up the bulk of my community service hours was doing website work for the Civil Liberties Defense Center. It's not necessarily that something that I necessarily would have done had I not been arrested, but it's certainly something that I don't mind doing, having been arrested, because they are such a great resource for activists everywhere. Whether you deliberately plan on being arrested or not, like knowing just sort of the legal context of what you're doing and what the consequences could possibly be. Aww.
Hi, sunshine.
You've got a guest.
I was going to say something, and then it just completely left my mind.
Sorry, she's really cute, huh?
Absolutely. With my case, which happened way back in November on Thanksgiving, best Thanksgiving ever. No, really, after I got out of jail, I got turkey dinner and all kinds of good stuff from people, and everybody was there. I know you were there. And I'm told that my plea bargain can be like 15 hours of community service if I just plead guilty and not fight it. But since we think that we have a very good case, and I wasn't told to leave Walmart at all and then left on my own accord and then just snatched up, we're going to take it in and fight it. And so as far as I'm concerned, I'm not willing to waste 15 hours of my time doing community service for the man, but I'm definitely willing to take up 14 hours of their time in court. And I mean, I guess that's just what happens when your dissent doesn't fit in a ballot box.
Yes.
Well, another thing with your arrest as well is I personally feel like they really picked you out because you were, well, one, holding the massive bullhorn, but also had the mask on.
The Guy Fawkes mask?
Yes.
Yeah.
And
that
I think that made it really easy, even though you did the exact same thing all the rest of us did. They kind of were able to peg you as the leader of the pack or whatever they want to call it, even though we've mentioned many a times, there is no leader.
There is no leader.
Although I've noticed that even though we tell them there is no leader, they always seem to think the tallest person there is the leader. I've noticed it's sort of a pattern.
Well, you can blame
true.
patriarchy.
Or they
that.
look for the
Yes.
people with the props, you know, like so I watched a video, Derek, of when you were getting arrested where I heard somebody in the background saying, you know, like just like pointing, you know, oh, you should arrest this person. And I don't know if they were talking about you or not, but like the employees were definitely seeking out the police to help them. So it's like, I don't know, something to keep in mind, I guess, but also at the same time, like the police seem to side, you know, with the corporations instead of, you know, the police are supposed to protect people. And if you're there exercising your right to free speech, like, I don't know, I think they're definitely protecting corporate interests in that case instead of...
Yeah, I believe we were outside in the parking lot holding hands, talking to each other, saying, okay, this was good, let's go home, get some whiskey, and call it a night. And yeah, I got tapped on the shoulder and turned around as some cop, and he said, can I speak with you over here, please? I said, you can speak to me right here. And he said, you're under arrest.
Whoa.
Yeah,
No.
well,
Wow.
I mean, he didn't tackle me or anything, but it was just kind of out of the nowhere. I was holding hands with my friends. It's a lot of fun.
You're
I'm
terrifying.
not gonna lie, it was a lot of fun. And so, yeah, I didn't spend very much time in jail. I was probably in there for 30 minutes, 40 minutes. I went in there and said, oh, hey, you know, I'd like to speak to my lawyer. They said, here's a phone book. I looked through it. There's no lawyer. My lawyer's not in the phone book. I said, can I have my cell phone to call my lawyer? They said, who's your lawyer? I said, Lauren Reagan. And they said, oh, I'm surprised she's not in the phone book. Are you reaching her at her downtown office or her campus office? I said, well, I'm actually going to be calling her personal cell phone number if I can get my phone so I can call my lawyer. And they said, okay. And 15 minutes later, they let me out and said, here you go. You don't even have to call your lawyer. And I saw you guys, and there was pumpkin pie and man. But how much time did you guys spend in when you did the N17 thing?
N17 was maybe 4 hours.
Yeah, I think it was
Yeah.
something close to 4 hours. We weren't...
But that includes like sitting in the paddy wagon, finally getting us there, taking their time, getting us out of the paddy wagon because there were 17 of us, and they had to process us, you know, check up all our stuff. I don't know, we were in the holding cell not 2 hours. I
Yeah,
don't think.
probably
Yeah.
not even 2 hours from then until the time that we got to leave. Yeah. It wasn't very long at all. And it was pretty, I mean, I'm not going to lie, it was fun. Like, so yeah, we went to jail, and you know, that's in our society, that's kind of one of those things that's like, oh my god, you can't go to jail because you're like a bad person and you're an outcast and you're whatever, or you've obviously done something wrong if you go to jail. But that's just really not the case, and it wasn't a terrible experience. We were all in there together, and we got to mic check each other, which was amazing. I don't know, it wasn't a bad experience.
The toilets, right?
Through the
Through toilets and like the 2-foot like concrete wall.
Yeah,
Like,
the
we were
walls
able to
are
check
thick.
through
We started out mic checking through the toilet, which worked, and that got us all excited. And then we just got really, really loud. And then we got up on the benches and started like stomping, and we started like singing songs. And they separated the girls and the boys, so we were like mic checking the boys through the wall, which was really, really, really cool. We felt so empowered at that time. And I don't know, we were in jail, and there was walls everywhere, and we couldn't have left if we wanted to, but I definitely had a feeling of being more free there than I did at any other time.
I mean, we also got a huge attaboy from the officer as we were leaving. I forget if he was like a sergeant or a lieutenant or whatever it was, but he had said that he had been policing Eugene for 30 or 40 years. You know, he was part of the Vietnam War protests or something before he became a cop, and you know, he was policing the protests during then and policing the protests during the 90s. And he said that we were probably one of the best groups of protesters that he had ever had to deal with, just in terms of like, you know, how respectful we were, but even though we were still adamant about sticking up for what we believed in. I don't know how it was for you two, but during N17, the police who surrounded me, and it was probably about 10 or 12 of them for me, Nick, and Tara at the back entrance of Chase. they were trying to give us every opportunity they could to not have us be arrested.
Yeah.
Yeah. They even tried to lie to us and say that the people at Bank of America didn't get arrested.
Yeah, they were definitely doing the best that they could. When they arrested us around the front, so this isn't exactly my story to tell, but so they arrested Sparrow first, and they arrested me second. And while they were processing me and cuffing me and taking my poncho off and checking me for weapons and all this ridiculous stuff, they just let her stand there and scream, and she was like yelling, like, "Throw down your badges and join us! We're not the ones you should be arresting!" And they just let her scream and scream and scream for the entire time that they, took everything off of me and put me in the thing, and then they finally, did what they were going to do with her, pat her down and whatever, and they just let her scream. And then once we got into that wagon and we started moving around, that was just amazing. There's a video of the paddy wagon just jumping and rocking because we were like, "You're not supposed to be arresting us, and if you are, then you're going to deal with us. You can't silence us just because you put us in handcuffs. It's not going to happen."
True that. Unless they gag you. I mean,
I dare them.
That's true.
I actually, spent the night overnight in jail on N17, and a pretty funny story is, as they were taking me to the dorms, the female officer that escorted me back there told me to not tell anybody that was in the dorms that I had been arrested for this, because we messed up their entire visiting schedule and they were pretty much just going to hate me. Right, yeah. And so I was like, oh, okay. And I walked in the dorms to actually them erupting and thanking me and all of us that were arrested. They had seen it on the news. We got massive applause, and truly by the end of the night they were calling themselves Occupy Lane County Jail.
Yes, that's awesome.
I was supposed to be so afraid of them, and they ended up giving me their food and some of their commissary and everything. So they didn't hate us at all. They thought it was awesome, and it's amazing to not only have support when you're with, those others that were arrested, but to walk in and see the amount of support we had in there. It was just funny, but amazing at the same time.
So you're saying the 99% are everywhere?
Even in jail.
Even in jail.
Actually, most of them are in.
Are you kidding? Oh, yeah. No. Jail is for the 99%.
Yeah.
Totally, I agree.
But jail support is also for the 99%, and that's one of the best things about getting arrested. If anybody gets arrested for any kind of Occupy Eugene related business, if you play your cards right, or if anybody really knows about it, you'll have a whole gaggle of people there to greet you as you get out and take you and get breakfast and just
bring you a cigarette.
Yeah,
yes.
pack of cigarettes and some beers,
or at least a lighter, because they take your lighter.
Yes, they do take your lighter. They always do.
High fives and palling around. Like mine was right after Thanksgiving, so I got my Thanksgiving dinner that night. I didn't get a chance to eat earlier before that, and we went off to Braille's and had a great breakfast. It was good. And didn't we go to Keystone when you got out?
It was very nice. A bunch of people came to greet me. I didn't see them at first. I was walking out of the Springfield Municipal Jail, and I looked around, and then I saw a bunch of people over there, and I was like, oh, good. And we ended up talking, and they were like, hey, you're out. And it's kind of odd, because I was in for 2 days, and people seemed to be like I'd been locked up for months and months, but it was still nice.
You're such a presence. We missed you.
Okay.
It's true, Art. We missed you very much while you were in jail.
Well,
we were hoping you'd get time served.
It's true.
So did I.
And that
We
didn't
thought you were
happen.
going to be in there for 10 days. You were going to quit smoking.
Yeah.
But instead you came out all angry.
It was odd, because originally I was told I spent 2 days in jail initially after that, and then I waited for a couple of months to see what it was going to be. And originally I was told to look at 15 hours of community service, and then I got an email from our lawyers saying, the city attorney wants to play hardball, apparently because George Polling, as a city councilor, was exerting pressure and reiterating all the lies he's been consistently telling about how people kicked his dog and how they were banging on his windows. And
He exerts a lot of pressure.
yeah, and none of those things happened, but they just sort of became part of the public narrative of the thing. So I was told I was looking at 10 days. I made it a bit difficult for Lauren because the judge asked me about road crew, and I said that if the county wanted the roads to be fixed, they should hire some people to fix them and pay them a living wage. And so I got jail, but Lauren managed to knock it down to 2 days. And I thought I was going to be getting time served because I'd already spent 2 days, but I walked in and into the jail expecting to be turned away, and the deputy just snapped the handcuffs on me, and I spent another 2 days actually in the same bunk that I'd spent 2 days on in Christmas.
Did you keep tallies of the number of days that you were in on the wall?
Leave your mark,
Yeah.
Art.
Now,
Right.
one
Leave your
thing
mark.
was different, but since they kept me overnight and you, I noticed, they put me in the dorm with a lot of other females while you were put in solitary.
I think that's part of the difference between Springfield and Eugene, but yeah, I was in 23-hour lockdown, so it was basically solitary. There was an empty bunk above me, so I think there was supposed to be someone else there, but apparently this whole business about jail overcrowding is grossly exaggerated because I was alone most of the time.
Was it because of your flanking maneuver?
It could very well be.
Maybe they figured you were so dangerous.
Yeah.
So the
That's
flanking
another-
maneuvers
Scare me.
come up twice now.
Yes.
What exactly?
Well,
What's that?
on the police report, it was kind of humorous, actually. It was almost like a bit of comic prose when I finally got my arrest report. But one of the things the judge said, or one of the things the arresting officer said, was that he walked up and he sensed I was about to flank him because, of course, I'm just the sort of guy who would like to take out 3 or 4 armed police officers. You know, I don't think twice about it.
Oh, Art. So we had some funny discussion the other day about your name, and we decided that instead of Frank, that you're Flank, Art Flank Bowman, instead of Frank.
And did the police treat you any differently when you went in there to serve your time and be rehabilitated?
Well, they weren't exactly nice. They were just showed me to my cell, and I didn't really talk to them that much. I just sort of stayed there, and they came by and they gave me my meals, which weren't exactly good. But and they had a stack of paperback books, so I ended up reading some old Star Trek novels. And that was how I spent my weekend.
Fun.
I was a little smart, Alec. I was just asking the cop questions about, like, oh, is this what's that? What does that do? Oh, that's an awesome computer. Can you see every other cop in town with that computer? And blah blah blah. And he's like real quiet, you know. And I just had a big stupid grin on my face, jumping up and down like some young naive kid who just got arrested at a Walmart or something like that. and I asked them if I couldn't get any of those cool black onyx gloves that they wear before they touch you. And the officer that took me from the EPD, they took me to Springfield Muni instead of Eugene, because there were like 50 people having a candlelight vigil outside of it, I guess. And we redirected ourselves and got on Beltline. And the moment I got to Springfield police, or the Springfield jail, all the cops had like this different demeanor. They were like almost happy to see me and were really polite and very nice. Much nicer than the guy who took me in. He seemed to have a chip on his shoulder, like it was Thanksgiving or something. I would hate to be working on Thanksgiving.
Well, the intake officers who searched me at Springfield were working on Christmas, so it might have been the same thing, but they were the only really off-the-top unpleasant people. I was in there and they were searching, and the one guy said, "What do we have here? A wallet." And then he looks at me and he goes, "Do we have any more surprises like that?" And I was like, why is a wallet in my pocket?
Because you're supposed to be poor.
Yeah.
Nobody who has money gets arrested.
Right. And when I asked him that question, though, he turns to his friend and he goes, hey, we have a wise guy here. I felt like I was in a bad movie or something like that.
Yeah,
That sounds like a
I
bad
had
movie.
steaks in my bag, and they put that on the evidence list. Like, got one of those occupiers.
Yeah.
So one of the things that we kind of had been talking about a little bit was why if you go to jail with intention, what's that going to look like for you? And I know that I felt really supported going to jail because there was like an arrangement that was made. We have a legal team and we have people that are, ready to, take down your name and whatever if you're going to be arrested, and people who are going to videotape your experience. And then we knew that when we were going to get out, if we needed a cigarette, if we needed a beer, if we wanted a soda, that people were going to be waiting. We had a jail support team, and then after that, we were able to put on fundraisers and raise money to be able to take care of like any legal fees and stuff that we had, which I actually didn't get to partake in because for other technical reasons, but
It was fun.
So do you want to talk about the fundraiser? Because I didn't get to go, but it was a good thing.
Yeah, what we did is we got together, and Mac from the Speakeasy was amazing, and she offered up the bar to have a fundraiser for those of us who, at that point, we didn't know what fines we may get. We didn't know whether or not we were each going to be paying $700 in fine, or we were going to do what we got, which was pretty much, I think it was $40, 15 for some of us. So we held a fundraiser, we had bands come, and it was an absolute blast. We fundraised a good bit of money to help pay off any fines and anything, and whatever was left over, since we didn't have a whole lot of fines, was able to go for when other friends of ours ended up needing the money. So it's nice to have that little bit of leftover, because it definitely lets you know that people are there for you, and that, we're not just going to let you get arrested and say, oh, well, come up with, the money because we know you're homeless with no job.
Yeah.
So we definitely carry on solidarity, to the utmost priority, and really take care of each other and make sure that, everybody has everything that we need.
Yeah.
That sort of supportive feeling can really lend itself to when you make a conscious decision to get arrested in your action. Because it is a decision that people make. In fact, it's common before an action, like, okay, does anyone want to get arrested for this?
Yeah.
And people raise their hands and say, oh, no, I can't. I just got popped last week or something like that, But what sort of things go through someone's head when they make the choice to get arrested? Like, not all of us get to make that choice. Sometimes you'll just get picked out while holding hands and singing with your friends, but other times...
Well, I personally had talked to, so N17 was a day of civil disobedience, and I had personally talked to a couple of friends of mine, and we were trying to figure out if we were going to get arrested or not. And honestly, I was really new to activism, but this was something that I could really get behind, the whole Occupy movement. And one of the girls, Gwen, that was there, she was actually doing peacekeeping for a while during the protesting. And when we got to Chase Bank, and we heard that they were going to give the warning or whatever for us to disperse, or they were going to arrest us. Seeing that Gwen had sat down next to Dusk and other people that were sitting in front of the doors, and had taken off her peacekeeper band, which was something that that was a really, strong tie that she had to that role, and to see that she was willing to take that off and to sit down in solidarity with other people, that really showed to me that what I was doing was something that was worthwhile, and that I was going to know that there was people there. So I made that choice on the spot, and I turned to my girlfriend and I said, babe, you want to get arrested today? And she said, are you getting arrested? I said, I sure am. She said, okay, let's go to jail. And so we, just knowing that there was those things in place, we knew that we had, lawyers that were going to represent us, and we knew, what the charges were. We'd all been given, all of that information, so that we knew what was going to happen and where, the consequences were going to be. And so for me, it was just a matter of knowing that there was going to be people there, you know, either people that I went into jail with or people that were going to be out there waiting when I got out, and, you know, possibly even missing me if I was going to have to be there, because, you know, just knowing I have a child and stuff like that. So being able to know what the consequences were and make those arrangements and know that there was people that were going to stand with me was really empowering, and it let me know that, you know, it was going to be okay regardless of what happened.
Touching on the child subject, because I have one as well, that's the other thing, is that we knew we had people there that we trusted and we loved that would be there to help take care of our child until this deal was over. So that's another bit of solidarity that we have with the other moms and everybody, that we knew that even that part would be taken care of, and we knew that they would be safe and loved by the people, you know, that we really trusted. So I know that made a huge difference, being a mother and having a child, and knowing, you know, that he's going to understand and that there will be people there and he's not going to be afraid. And I know that definitely helped me sit down.
Mm-hmm. For sure. That was really empowering. Like, I was already on the fence about it, you know, I'm not quite sure. And I don't know, I guess just seeing Gwen sit down like that was really amazing. And watching the video afterwards of when we got arrested and seeing, I just drew a blank on his name. Ira, and seeing Ira get, you know, laying face down on the ground as he's got handcuffs on and the police are starting to pick him up, and he's just screaming solidarity forever. Like that to me is what it's all about. It's just, you know, picking your cause and standing by it and standing by each other. That was really important for me.
So when it comes to like a protest, people think signs and standing out in front of a building or some dude's house or whatever and yelling at it. What sort of what are your thoughts on like what civil disobedience adds to the message when you go out and perform an action? You know, like, obviously you get arrested for breaking some kind of law. What sort of weight does civil disobedience carry with it? I could think of a lot of things.
Yeah.
I mean,
to me, I think that as far as public perception goes, the reason that I'm so passionate is because things in this world are so incredibly messed up that I am willing to give up my freedom so that people will understand the seriousness of the things that are going on in this country that may have never made the news before. Mainstream media hardly covers anything that's logical. And, you know, doing this gets it out to the media, and a lot of people will say, you know, they'll be like, wow, it's really that passionate to them. Maybe I should look that up. Maybe I should do a little bit more research. And frankly, when you do research into it, it makes you mad and we gain another activist.
It's true. Civil disobedience is definitely important. It's the power that you have as a person who lives in this society. You know, that was one of the things. Okay, Rosa Parks sitting in the back of the bus, Martin Luther King, and all the things that he did. You know, being disobedient towards the system and just basically giving it the finger, you know, shows that we're not to be oppressed. You can't hold us down and put us in a box.
Yeah. For me, taking a potentially arrestable action is about doing something that I believe should happen in the world that I want to live in. So, for instance, you know, Chase and Bank of America have been so complicit in committing so many crimes around foreclosures and, you know, bogus investment schemes and all of that. Like, it seems to me that if the government, which is supposed to serve the people, doesn't do their job and hold them responsible, you know, arrest the right people or whatever, then it should be up to the people to shut them down and say that they have no right to continue operating in this town or in any town. And so I wouldn't be surprised if you saw me in front of a Bank of America again.
Yeah?
I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a lot of people in front of Bank of America soon.
Committing civil disobedience. I guess Election Day just isn't enough to get rid of people's dissent, huh?
It never has been.
It's not.
No, it never has been. But you get arrested for it, especially in this country. And it gives the population a chance to realize how corrupt the justice system is. We touched on that a bit, and I mean, that's a topic that you can protest in on its own. But yeah, all that sort of stuff can go into deciding whether or not you want to get arrested at an action.
And if you ever want to make that decision, there's people to talk to. And we also have events coming up. We have Occupy the Trees, which is going to be an amazing event. And we also have May Day, which is a general strike. So please don't go to work. Please don't go to school.
Don't go to church.
Please don't go to the bank.
Don't go shopping.
Yeah, don't go shopping. Have a general strike, because without the 99%, the 1% would be so lost. And they wouldn't know how to iron their clothes or pump their gas or anything. And they'd probably just freak out.
May Day. That's May 1st.
May
A day
1st.
without the 99%.
Don't go to work. Take yourself off of your pivot in the machine and join us in the streets. And we're going to be walking around and singing and dancing and having a great old time.
Causing a ruckus.
Causing a ruckus, sure. Perhaps not the faces that you see here on this panel will be doing too much of the big bits of ruckus. That may or may not happen. But
May or may not.
right. But that's coming up. That's May Day. Occupy the Trees, I believe Cascadian Forest Defense just spoke about that. That's coming up on Earth Day?
April 22nd.
April 22nd.
And it's a 4-day event, and there will be different themes for each day. One day is going to be a kids' day, and we're going to have a kids' march, and it's going to be amazing.
I think that there's going to be some speakers and artists that are also going to be showing up and performing for people.
Guerrilla
And some
gardening.
good conversations. Guerrilla gardening definitely is a big part of Occupy the Trees. Earth Day, you know. I also we're kind of running out of time here. I think that this would be a great time to plug the idea of turning off the TV that you are currently watching us on.
Yes.
Please,
Kill your TV.
turn it off. This is called a television program. You are being programmed and brainwashed to work and act and live. I mean, my God, some of the most popular TV programs out there are heterosexual nuclear families where the guy goes to work and the mom stays home and works for her kids, and just break yourself out of that. I'm sure you guys can. I shouldn't be the only one yelling at the camera here. Turn off your
Don't
TV.
perpetuate the machine. And here's the thing. We all know that the revolution is not going to be televised.
It's not.
It's
gonna be
not.
live
So
streamed.
turn off your TV and come and join us where it's really, really relevant and where you're necessary.
Yeah.
And if you still want to be,
Whenever I turn on the TV, I just see cops. Cops everywhere. It's worse than real life.
Another good reason to turn off your TV is because it's just antiquated, dead technology. Get on the internet. That's how you get your media out. There are viral advertisements that go out to be able to produce products. It's just stupid. Don't participate in it anymore. There's no reason why somebody else should be deciding what you watch and when. Eventually.
Agreed.
Your brain engages in more activity when it's sleeping than when it's watching TV.
So turn off your television. The government was behind 9/11. That is Occupy TV.
Kill your TV. Just kill
Thank you
your
very
TV.
much to everybody here that's having this discussion, and thank you, our one Lord and Savior in heaven, Joe Tyndall. And take care. That was fun.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly clear. There's a man with a gun over there, telling me I got to beware. I think it's time we stop, children. What's that?